Yeah, everywhere I go. Oh wow, you jumped over the cable. Very athletic.
Oh really?
Very athletic. Okay, let me do the noise gate real quick, because I don't know if they can hear you right now. Maybe. YANIS VAROUFAKIS in the building, everybody. An honor to have you here in person.
It's a great pleasure.
Yeah.
Honor, joy, all that.
All right, let's see. Okay, I'll take off the noise gate. All right, this should be good. All right, we'll crank up the gain as well, and then you guys can probably hear us better this way. I hope. Is it good? We're live both on YouTube for the first time ever. Normally, I just go live on Twitch.
Right.
And there's 30,000 people watching on Twitch, and there's another 20,000 people watching on YouTube. So 50,000 total people watching on both of these platforms. And the reason why the static is very bad. What do you mean? What's static? Is there static? Anyway, whatever. There's going to be some production issues because this is like, unfortunately, one of those problems where increase the volume. Okay, I'll crank it up even more. I thought I had it cranked up enough, but maybe no. What about now? Is it better? Chat? Is this better? I think this is better, right? It should be good. Okay, this should be good. Real-time production. YANIS VAROUFAKIS in the building, everybody. We're just gonna talk about the valve economy. Actually, that's why
what you wanted out.
That's why I brought you here. Yeah, to talk about Gaben.
Hello, everyone.
To talk about Gaben and the valve economy.
He wants insider information.
Yeah, that's what I want to know because he cooked the CS:GO knife market recently out of nowhere.
I don't follow. Yeah, I have to tell you that I don't follow.
No, I'm kidding. I know. Well, they might not know because everyone is always shocked because they might know you as Marxist academic. They might know you from Progressive International, but a lot of people don't know that you were early on in
very early on.
Very early on, and you helped with the valve economy, right?
Well, let me tell you, it's a nice story. By the way, I'm not going to divulge anything that Gabe wouldn't want me to. Okay. Because one has to stick to one's basic ethical rules. But there isn't that much to divulge anyway. But the story, I think, is quite interesting because, I'm not a gamer. I mean, I used to. I'm still.
You're not a gamer.
No, I'm not a gamer. I used to play Space Invaders when I was young, right? I mean that kind of antiquated stuff, and a lot of pinball machines. I love pinball machines.
Okay.
That's it. Really. So
So you were there when gaming was invented.
I was there when gaming was invented, and then I gave up when it became interactive and multiplayer and more interesting.
Yeah.
So around 2007, 2008, with the great financial collapse, I got seriously stuck into what was happening in the world of finance, especially in my neck of the woods, because my country became effectively ground zero. Your country was the original ground zero with subprime market and all that, but when that shockwave hit Greece, we're talking about carnage, real carnage, not the Donald Trump kind of bullshit carnage he's referring to. Anyway, so I wrote a lot. I created a blog just for that purpose, in order to discuss what I thought needed to be discussed. And to cut a long story short, I was writing a lot about the Eurozone, about the problems of bringing different jurisdictions together, different countries together under the aegis of a common currency. And I was very critical, and I was explaining the systemic issues that emerge. Lots of boring stuff from most people who are not interested in finance. And one night, it was 2011, I get an email from somebody I had never heard of, Gabe Newell.
Yeah.
Gaben.
And
he said, dear Yanis, didn't say dear Yanis, hi Yanis. My name is Gabe, and my work has nothing to do with yours, but I've been following your criticisms of the way in which Europe has put its currencies together. So I was reading, and he said, I am a game developer, I have a gaming company, I knew nothing about all this world. And I was about to stop reading and move on. I thought, okay, why do I care?
Yeah.
And then he said something that piqued my interest. He said, we are facing in my company similar problems to the Eurozone, according to your description. I thought, what? Here we have a continent, we have 19 countries, put all the currencies into one. What does this have to do with gaming? And so I kept reading. And it was just one paragraph. He said, we have different gaming platforms, we have different games, and there has been a spontaneous emergence, evolution of currencies. And we are wondering, I'm worrying that maybe we're making the mistake of bringing those currencies together and creating a common currency in a manner that's reminiscent of the fuck up that is Europe.
Yeah.
He didn't use that word, he was much more polite. And would you like to talk to me about that? So I responded. I mean, it was very intriguing.
Yeah.
To cut a long story short, I happened to be going to the United States a week after that. I was going to go to New York. And he said, well, if you're coming to New York, why don't you come to Seattle as well? And I was flown there. And I remember I arrived in Seattle at the airport. And there's this limo that was waiting for me. And the driver said, you're here for the interview? I said, no. I'm here to spend a day talking to Gabe and some people in the company about, interesting stuff. Anyway, he was really very polite, the driver. And when he dropped me off at the hotel, he leaned towards me. He said, you are here for the interview. And I thought, look, what a pugnacious driver that guy is. Anyway, it turned out that it was an informal interview. And anyway, we worked together for about a year.
Yeah.
And it was great fun because what was happening was very close to what he suspected was happening. Those of you who are gamers, who know about the hat economy and the various... Look, just briefly, these people were game developers. They had not imagined that they would have created a multi-million or multi-billion dollar economy within their games. But what happened was that some of those items that they drop in order to give incentives to people to keep playing the game, at some point they discontinued them and then they drop different items, different gifts, different swords, different hats, different this, that, and the other. So what they noticed, what they actually observed, was that those older digital items were becoming collectibles. And people were stepping out of the game, they were going into eBay and trading them on trust.
Yeah.
On trust. Okay, so you and I are playing Half-Life, whatever, and you want my old hat. And so what we do is we go into eBay, you give me $5,000. Back then, that was a huge quantity of money for a stupid digital hat, right? Which is worth nothing, really.
I mean, I can't believe you're saying that. Gaben's going to be mad.
Yeah, well, let them. I don't mind. I don't mind. I'm quite good at making people mad. Anyway, so, but then they would have to trust that the person that actually received the money will actually hand over the hat in the game.
Yeah.
So the idea emerged that, firstly, this is a bubble that if it bursts, a lot of people get burned, and bonds of trust will collapse. And then Gabe was worried that the people would leave the game, and he would lose customers. That's one thing. And secondly, he was thinking of ways of monetizing it. So why let eBay monetize it and not bring it into the platform itself?
Yeah.
So essentially, that was the beginning of my idea about techno-feudalism. Because I was thinking that, hang on a second, here you have spontaneously emerging economies within gaming platforms, within digital universes, which sounds great and very interesting, except that they're owned by one man.
Yeah.
He's the techno-feudal lord. He may be benevolent.
Yeah, I was about to say he
could be malevolent.
At least on the internet, he's regarded as like the only good benevolent techno-feudal lord. Yeah,
well, okay, but I don't know how he has behaved since 2012, which is the last time I spoke to these people. Your audience will have to tell us.
No, even to this day. Well, Turks have a special place for Gaben because I think he did like a price adjustment. Was it him who said like piracy as a service issue. I think it might have been him who said
Sounds
that.
like him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard him say that, but it sounds like.
But I do agree with that on principle because like I grew up, you know, in the participating in the black market for video games because in Turkey it's like impossible to access them, and there was a secondary market in the country where we would go to like a storefront, like a brick and mortar retail store that would sell, you know, 2 lira video games that were downloaded on the internet. It was completely, it was with a concept called crack. So they would like crack the game so you could play it without having to actually purchase it online. And he's right. The only reason why I downloaded, you know, these pirated copies or purchased these pirated copies at these stores was because it was inaccessible. It was impossible to access it. And what he did was he did currency adjustment. So if a game was like $5,
That's right.
it was 5 lira equivalent in Turkey. And
so it was PPP.
Yeah. Exactly.
Purchasing
PPP,
power parity.
Exactly. PPP adjusted.
That's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, and that's why Turks
That's not really,
love him.
you know, particularly progressive. This is simply smart business.
Yeah, for sure. But because I think because other companies are much more greedy, that he looks better in comparison.
No, I understand. But it's not just that. The way in which Valve was run internally, the horizontal, or at least in theory, horizontal management structure, lack of management, the rather anarcho-syndicalist aura that the place had. So, you know, you chose your own projects, you didn't have a line manager, and you just had an idea and you put it out there on the internet and you ask people, you know, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to join me? And nobody could say, bad idea, don't do it. It was a question of whether you could garner enough support from other employees to come and work with you. So what I did was, the few months I was there, I actually studied that economy. Because it was an economy in the making. And it felt, as an economist, it was a dream come true. You know, Hasan, do you realize I didn't need statistics? Because, you know, I was God.
Yeah.
When you're God, when you have all the data, when you're omniscient, why do you need statistics? You need statistics only when you don't know and you try to sample in order to get an approximation of the facts. Yeah. But if you have all the facts in real time, you know exactly who did what when.
Yeah.
Throughout, you know, from beginning to now, in real time. So it was very exciting. And, you know, and I studied the way in which different items emerged as currency, candidates, and how, you know, the exchange rates between them. It was, for me as an academic economist, like being a child in a lolly store.
Yeah. So that's just a little bit of background for the audience that might not know. But you're here in the Web Summit in Qatar. We're in the heart of conflict right now. And for those of you who don't know, you've written extensively about geopolitical affairs in general, but also socialist, communist movements around the world. And one of the major things that is going on today that I wanted to cover is how interconnected it all is around a singular figure almost, Jeffrey Epstein. It's one of those. It's an absolute vindication moment for the left position, I think, internationally. We've talked about, we've talked about dollar hegemony and potentially these predatory elite billionaires that control the world of finance, control the globe. These capitalists that are potentially engaging in like horrifying acts behind closed doors. And networking along those lines to dominate the entire planet. And the Department of Justice has been forced to release the Jeffrey Epstein investigation files, and they've taken a slow approach so far. But there have been new dumps that came out over the weekend, and it's been very interesting to analyze. Have you been paying attention to this?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm mentioned in them.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, really?
And in the nicest possible way, I have to say.
Are they saying like, oh, look at this like article from YANIS Varoufakis
No,
situation?
No, it's much more satisfying for me, because most of our audience won't know that, but 10 years ago I was the Minister of Finance of Greece, and I was vilified, and I was demonized, and I was presented as a baboon and a fool.
Yeah.
Because I was refusing a new credit card from the financial cabal that's running international finance.
Yeah.
Just, I'm sure that our audience don't know that. Very, very briefly, Greece was the subprime market of Europe. We went bankrupt, and they tried to cover this up by giving us credit cards. And the credit cards were given in order to make sure that the bankers that had lent, these were predatory loans to the Greek oligarchy, were made whole. And the Greek people who were suffering from the Greek oligarchy and the international oligarchy were made to bear the cost of the credit cards. And of course, when you take a credit card to repay a loan, then that credit card runs out and you have to get another credit card and then another one. And not only that, but they were handing these credit cards over. They were pushing them down our throat. It was a predatory loan, a predatory credit card, on conditions of really very harsh austerity, shutting down hospitals and universities and schools.
As a Turk, I'm very familiar.
Can you imagine 40% reduction in wages and pensions?
Yes, I can imagine.
40%. Don't have that in
no,
in
I
the
know.
United
I'm
States,
saying,
but it's So this was happening, and I was elected with a very loud majority, I have to say, so as not to take another credit card, not to take another predatory loan. To say, look, we are going to go bankrupt. We are going to suffer the costs of bankruptcy, but we are going to renew. And they were absolutely insistent on getting my government, the government I was a member of, to take on another credit card, and I wouldn't sign it. And because I was the Minister of Finance, I was the only one who had the authority to sign it. So the Prime Minister, my comrade until then, who succumbed to their pressures, had to get rid of me. So in one letter that appeared yesterday as part of the dump,
right here, Ariane Rothschild to Epstein discussing former Prime Minister Alexis.
He had to get rid of me. Yeah. He wanted to get rid of me, and he got what he wanted, and he got rid of me. But there is also another one in which what I had been saying has been vindicated, even if I'm saying so myself. And that's that all those loans that were given to the Greek state were not a bailout for Greece; they were a bailout for the French and the German banks.
Yeah, isn't it crazy how forthcoming they were in these private correspondences?
Why wouldn't they be?
I mean, they're untouchable.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, this is...
I mean, they are the oligarchy.
Yeah.
They talk about the little people there as if they are vermin, as we, you and I are vermin.
Yeah.
And would you expect it to be different?
Well, I thought that they would be a little bit more tactful and a little bit more intelligent.
Why did you think that?
I don't know.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely and makes you feel that you are beyond and above.
The reason why I thought they would be a little bit more intelligent is because I'm operating with the same mindset that like a normal person would, where I would not have expected private correspondences to take place on a fucking email type called Jeffrey Epstein Vacation at gmail.com with like this international cabal of political leadership and financial leaders.
Yeah, look, it just goes to show that they feel that they have impunity and immunity.
And they kind of do, because nothing is coming of this.
That's right.
And
the only reason why this guy is in prison is because he must have crossed someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the only reason why he was assassinated, in my opinion, rather than the common take is, or at least the mainstream media approach is that he killed himself. I don't believe that. Is because they were worried that this kind of information might come out as leverage, like some of these things.
You may say this, I couldn't possibly comment. In the end, I don't give a damn how he died. There are so many people whose lives was absolutely wrecked. Think of the tens of millions of Americans who lost their livelihood, they lost their pensions. They are 90-year-old men and women now in your country working shitty jobs, bullshit jobs, just because they lost their pensions from those people. Now, do I care how they died? No.
Yeah. I will say, what's been also remarkable about the way that this information is disseminated now is that we are in a new media environment, I think, where not only are the oligarchs more untouchable than ever before, like this is the most I mean, you use the term techno feudalism, but this is the most like this is the closest we've ever been to not even feudalism, but like straight up monarchy, where we have lords. We have, I mean, I guess feudalism.
It is
like
feudalism, because it's not
serfs.
monarchy. You have different fiefs, and different lords.
Well, just wait till Donald Trump stabilizes the whole international design.
He can't.
I don't think
this
so
is
either.
a fundamentally unstable design.
Yeah.
This is why it's detrimental to the prospects of our species, not just of our democracies or whatever it is left of our democracies. It is pure feudalism. TikTok comes up, it challenges Meta, then Oracle comes in and takes it over. Then something else is going to Open AI comes in, and then Google comes up with Gemini, and so just like in the feudal era, you may have a king, like you have Trump, but they are not all powerful. Yeah. Their power comes from being able to balance the game or recalibrate the game between the feudal lords under them. I mean, if you think of the Magna Carta, which is supposed to be the foundational document of democracy today in the West, what was that? It was a deal between the king and the bloody barons, granting the barons the right to have slaves.
Yeah.
So we, in a sense, the more things change, the more the same they stay.
No, absolutely. I like to. I mean, this is reductive, but like the way I analyze it is that if God is the reason for why the king was supposed to have this absolute power, and the lords that sucked up to him were also granted like a level of prominence, in a capitalist structure, it almost feels like the lie that is presented as meritocracy, where we have this same like the self-justifying process here is that these wealthy people, these endlessly wealthy people that you could consider to be barons or lords, are there because they worked really hard. Maybe not because like they got the heavens mandate or whatever, but this time they actually worked really hard and worked really smart, and that's the reason why they're in that position of prominence.
But the mafiosos say that, and they're not wrong. Being in the mafia, running the mafia, is very hard work. There's no doubt that watch The Godfather. Yeah, it's not easy work. It takes skill, it takes leadership, it takes a capacity to manage people. These people don't sleep. They are working all day and all night to keep everybody else down. So what? That they work hard. Elon Musk is a workaholic. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
but at the end of the day, the way I see it
his
is like
trillions have nothing to do with the hard work that he does.
No, exactly.
Right?
But that was my point. He doesn't work a trillion times harder than like
exactly
a teacher in Oklahoma who has to like do Uber on the side in the gig economy, participate in the gig economy so they can purchase like extra school supplies for their students. Like that person is working probably harder than Elon Musk is. Elon Musk has delegated the responsibility to a lot of other people who are just as much more intelligent than he is in many respects, because he's not commanding over these.
Look, these people get
directly.
rich in their sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to work. The fact that they work so hard is because they're driven by a very sad propensity towards keeping everybody below them. So it's not productive work. They may do productive things in the process, but these are accidental. Like, for instance, he built some decent cars. Elon Musk is not about that. But the main manner in which these people become so, incredibly wealthy beyond the imagination of the human mind, is by making sure that they have a machine, an algorithm, whatever, industrial robots, whatever, that have the capacity to extract the wealth that the masses are producing and appropriating it. It's just expropriation.
Yeah, on overdrive. Wait, hold on. Things are still working, right? I just had my YouTube break for a second, but I think it's all good. Okay. This is more complicated. This is the first time I'm doing a dual stream on both YouTube and Twitch, so I'm like trying to be cognizant of everything that's going on. So I apologize if I feel a little bit distracted. Hold on. Okay, so I have a question from one of my mods. Says, would love to hear Yanis' thoughts on the lack of job opportunities for new grads and what it means for economies when young people are shut out from careers, thus being unemployed or underemployed and losing faith in the college degree.
Well, you know better than me how your country works. You have a Ponzi scheme called the university system. It keeps pushing costs up, indebting, the indebtedness of students, of the student body, is becoming has become already the new subprime. The more indebted the students are, the more they try to extract exchange value from the university degree, the lower the level of education that they get as a result. Because the only way of being genuinely educated is by being educated in a way that goes beyond being trained. And so in the end, you have the students, young people, resembling guinea pigs on a treadmill. They go it doesn't matter how much faster they go, they are not going to go anywhere. And then simultaneously, all the work that is being done in Silicon Valley is creating capacities that could enhance productivity, but don't. So, take for instance, I was, just to answer this question directly, I was looking at graduates of schools of radiology. Now, AI can be immensely helpful when it comes to reading CAT scans and MRIs and so on, because it really can say, oh, look, there's a shadow there, you should, with my experience, the AI bot says, this needs to be looked at. That's magnificent. But that's now not how the AI bot is being marketed by its vendor. The way it's marketed is they go to the hospital and say, look, you have 10 people reading these scans, fire 9 of them, and the AI will do the rest of it. So that's why you can't find a job. And the one person who does find work has their soul destroyed, because they can't read those scans. They cannot verify whether the AI is hallucinating or not, but they take all the liability. And if anything goes wrong, it's down to them. So you get rid of a lot of those positions in the same process, within the same process that creates student debt, and then once the few of them who get jobs have their lives destroyed. Their working lives destroyed.
Yeah, because they're working, technological innovation is a good thing, but under capitalism, technological innovation only works to displace the existing labor force, and therefore it instead of offsetting the amount of work that you're doing, like lifting your burden, making your job easier while still keeping your wages relatively high and having the freedom to do other things, it causes you to do 10 people's job, and 10 people's responsibility is delegated to one person.
It takes us all the way back to Karl Marx.
Yeah.
I mean, what was Marx's critique of industrialization? It wasn't a critique of the machines.
Yeah.
He loved the machines.
Yeah.
It wasn't a critique of the factory. He thought that these machines, factories, electricity networks later on, after Marx, were capable of liberating us from need, from want, from chores.
Yeah.
But his problem was that if these belong to the 0.1%, and today, when it comes to algos, we're talking about the 0.0001%, then instead of those machines being our slaves, we are enslaved to them.
Yeah. That's the, it's a cliche to be like, Marx didn't consider this when he considered pretty much everything. But I do feel like not even just Marx, but economists before him as well, could not comprehend the unlimited greed that people have in general. Because I don't know where we go from here as far as, profit rates declining, and then just a rudderless, billions of people that are out of a job, where all the value for the remainder of the workforce is being extracted in incredibly high rates by the super wealthy.
Well, can we disagree on this?
Well, sure.
I don't believe that human beings are characterized and typified by unlimited greed, and it's not true.
I don't believe it
and
either.
It's not true that Marx believed that. What Marx said was that human beings embedded in the logic of capital. Once we become enslaved to the machine, and the machines need to accumulate in the logic of profit maximization and profit accumulation, then the human spirit slowly dies and it is replaced by unbridled greed, which is soul destroying.
Like a coal miner's natural
his critique
condition
was that capitalism is not unjust, but that it is irrational.
Yeah.
And it is killing our soul and our capacity to enjoy life, to lead a successful life, and therefore injustice is a byproduct of the capitalist accumulation process.
Yeah, just as what did he say? I think he said that the coal miner's natural position is a coal miner thinks that the natural position is to have black lung. I'm paraphrasing. I'm butchering the quote, but under capitalism, people assume that the natural tendency is towards greed and self-interest.
And there's nothing natural about it.
Yeah.
Capitalism is this. We need to understand that capitalism, feudalism, everything we're seeing are totally unnatural and against human nature.
Yeah, but my question more so was about where we go from here, because labor organizing is at disastrous levels in the United States of America. And even much of the Western liberal capitalist world as well. Liberalism is collapsing, as it did only a century ago. And it does feel like the same cycle of maintaining stability and order through a fascist organizing is coming back in fashion. But this time, the main country that is dominating this process is a nuclear-armed superpower. A superpower that is more powerful than any other, I would say, historic empire, especially with the technological availabilities. And I don't know how we organize in that world, especially with no real counterweight, with no real counterbalance, like nation state that is opposing the United States of America.
Well, dialectical thinking, which is what Marx and Engels taught me, is my only source of hope. Why? Because what is dialectics? It's the fact that what we're observing is a contradiction.
Yeah.
You have a remarkable technological means that could liberate us, and at the same time, we have the worst form of illiberty in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
It's worse than feudalism what we have now.
Yeah.
People underestimate the degrees of freedom that peasants used to have in the fiefs in the 18th, 17th, 16th centuries, right?
Even freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement. And also, they worked for fewer hours. They had a lot of rituals. Every third day was a holiday.
Yeah.
They sang and they danced and they lived in their grandparents' houses. And they didn't have to worry about social housing or private markets or anything like that. So I'm not saying that the life was fantastic, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You're catching my drift.
Yeah.
This huge contradiction between the capacities that we have already developed as a species and the poor quality of life that the masses are experiencing, even rich people, who go to shrinks and they can't sleep at night and they have to take pills and they have to find gurus and go to India in order to find themselves, and they never do, right?
Yeah.
So this contradiction is the source of hope, because this can't continue like this. So of course it will all end up blowing up in our hands with a nuclear disaster, or more likely climate catastrophe, or collapse. But at the same time, the possibility is there to grab those machines and make them work for us, to use those capacities. We can feed the world. There's no need for people to be hungry. There's no need for people not to have housing, except the capitalist relations production. So, that for me is the source of hope. But you mentioned trade unions. Look, trade unions sold out. It's really very simple. The moment they gave up the notion of social ownership of the workplace, and they simply tried for better wages and terms and conditions, that's it. They lost the game. And to illustrate this, what I tell people is this. You're worried about robots and AI and all that replacing people and getting rid of you and firing you. Well, think about it. Is it the machine that is the problem, or the capitalist relations of production? Let's suppose you have a factory of 1,000 people, right? And it produces widgets. Doesn't matter what it is. And it produces 1,000 widgets. So 1,000 workers produce 1,000 widgets. Let's keep the math simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is this AI operated or driven machine that could produce 1,000 widgets out of 500 workers. Now, if this company belongs to the private equity fund. The private equity fund will instruct the CEO to fire half the workers and get the AI bot to do the work, right? But if this is owned on the basis of one employee, one share, one vote, they will have a little meeting and they say, do you want this machine? And they say, yes, of course we want this machine. Let's bring it in. And we're going to work 4 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Right? And then we can look after our kids or elderly
or
parents.
Or even 5 hours a day rather than 4 hours a day, and then you offset the cost of the machine that you're paying for, and therefore you still end up working 5 hours a day and have the same exact output.
Whatever. It's going to be a democratic decision.
Exactly.
And the machines will be your servant.
Yeah.
Not vice versa. So let's not focus on tech. This is what I've been saying here in Doha.
Ironic.
Don't forget about the tech. Concentrate on the social relations of production, distribution, exchange, and communication.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, judging by the interactions that I've had so far, I don't think anybody's focusing on the social relations.
I did today.
I mean,
and they were looking at me as if I was an extraterrestrial.
Yeah, no, but they're so far removed from that world. Everyone is on Sigma.
But that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
We're here to just make them feel slightly uncomfortable about being so disconnected to what the true issues are.
Yeah. But what's interesting is they do recognize the friction. Like, it's impossible not to notice. As the contradictions worsen, I think a lot of people, even wealthy people, start noticing the instability. It's kind of like the conversations that have taken place. I'm sure you're more familiar with this than I am, but like in Davos for the last decade have, I think, shifted dramatically in the direction of like, maybe we need to do, first they said, maybe we need to do ethical capitalism. Do you remember? Yeah. This was, I think around 2016 or 2017 when they were like, maybe we need to do ethical capitalism. Maybe we need to focus on stakeholder capitalism.
I got a hernia laughing when I
stakeholder capitalism rather than shareholder capitalism, where like workers also are a part of the stakeholders.
Yeah, but they're never going to do it.
But they never did it. They talk about it.
They have a collective action problem.
Yeah.
It may be, they recognize that it would be in their common interest to fund universities so that students do not go into debt, to have a proper health service, because the one you have in the United States, which is coming to Europe.
Oh yeah.
On a daily basis.
Oh, we're
increasingly so.
We're importing our brain rot and our privatization.
That it's totally mad. They know that, right?
Yeah.
They know that, but they simply don't know how to react to this knowledge. So it's this is the tragedy of the commons. They have that. They know that collectively they should be doing that. But there is a strategy which is far more profitable for them. It is to say, well, let all the others do it while we don't. This is a prisoner's dilemma.
Yeah.
And then the result is that none of them does it.
Yeah.
So they talk about it, and they expect everybody else to do it except them. And then, in a never-ending circle of confirmation, when the others are not doing it either, they say, well, what am I going to be, the fool that do it on my own?
Yeah. And also, even in America, if you look at domestic output, domestic production, it's like with the services offered, with corporate consolidation, it's much easier to engage in price leadership than ever before, when everyone else is constantly constantly corner cutting, and then the other like 2 or 3 market competitors also engage in the same process.
Free rider problems.
Yeah, they'll be like, okay, we should do this as well, and then the average person doesn't realize why the services that they're getting are no longer as affordable or no longer as good as they once were, and that creates more instability. And in the process of that instability, you have this cycle where reactionaries will come in and say, oh, it's because of insert vulnerable group. Oh, it's because of trans people. It's because of it's
the scapegoating.
Yeah, exactly. Just like pointing the finger of blame. But that's very successful, and that's how we arrive at someone like Donald Trump.
It's called divide and conquer.
Yeah.
The British Empire ruled 3/4 of the world using it.
Yeah.
And then racism in the United States managed to separate white workers from black workers, and then you have identity politics doing the same thing at many different levels. So we have to go back to organizing.
Yeah, but I do think that, I mean, this is something I think about quite a bit. I feel like one of the major issues is the lack of political education, especially in America. I mean, it's been it's been steadily ripped apart over the last half a century with Red Scare, and I mean it's illegal to be a communist and be a trade union leader in this country still, like supposedly the freest of the free speech countries out there, and yet your political ideology is such a threat that you can't even be openly a communist and be a part of a labor union or be in a leadership in a labor union, and I feel like that plays a major role where that's how you arrive at rank and filers in places like the Teamsters. There's many rank and filers in my chat that will constantly complain about their union brethren being super right wing and super reactionary and voting for Donald Trump. And obviously the alternative is the Democrats, which is also a liberal party that's also a bourgeois party. And they're not necessarily representing their interests either. But
what do you mean not necessarily?
I mean they're not representing.
Treat
their
them like deplorables. Remember?
Yeah, that's
do you
true.
Remember Hillary?
Yeah, no, for sure. but like there is an opportunity there.
Donald Trump didn't really have to try very hard to become president of the United States.
No,
he had the Clintons and the Obamas doing all his work for him.
Yeah, and I mean even with Kamala Harris too. Oh
what do you mean?
God.
Especially
Kamala Harris. It was disastrous. And I just kept yelling at them. I went to the DNC. I talked to them in person. I was like, "What are you guys doing? Like, this is a disaster."
Hasan, why did you go to the DNC? The DNC want Trump to be in the presidency if the alternative is somebody like Mamdani or our friend Bernie.
Yeah,
they actively chose Trump in 2015-16 over Bernie Sanders. They knew what they were doing.
I mean, they did write about it too. Like even in 2020 when Bernie was doing the primary,
because they think, Trump, okay, 4 years, then we'll come back.
Yeah.
Whereas if the progressive side of politics gets on board and they are popular, my God, that's it. We've lost our privileges. We've lost our access to Wall Street.
Do you think Trump's like the volatility that Trump represents, not beyond the capital owners, but like for the professional managerial class and whatnot, because they are the ones who are very frustrated right now in America.
Well,
at the tippy top, the capital owners,
they deserve it.
It's true, but will that wake them up? Because I do think it is a little bit.
Well, look, think of the 1920s and 1930s. Now, why did the fascists manage to gain power? It is because the bourgeois liberals were more fearful of the left than they were of the fascists.
Yeah.
And when push came to shove, they chose the fascists. I mean, Hitler was appointed chancellor by Hindenburg.
Yeah.
The most liberal of aristocrats.
Yeah.
Because he thought, well, okay, I can control him. Well, you can't control him. This is what the people you're referring to now are feeling about Trump. They see the hooded men of ICE just wrecking the country and wrecking the cities, and they think, oh my God, what's happening? But mate, you chose Trump over Bernie.
Yeah.
And you would do it again.
I don't think that. That's what I was saying. I think that is actually changing.
You think they would choose Mamdani for president instead of somebody like Trump?
I don't know.
Or J.D. Vance? No?
Because the option has never been represented.
No, hypothetically.
In this environment, I do think that looking at the approvals of someone like Zoran Mamdani from the professional managerial class that normally would be very resistant to any sort of left position beyond liberal Democrats that love small businesses and talk about how small businesses are the backbone of the American economy, all this stuff. I think those people are now recognizing they're now recognizing that they don't want Republicans to be in charge, and they're now recognizing that electability is actually in favor of the left position rather than the establishment Democrats, the modern Democrats, and it's largely in part because of Chuck Schumer's ineptitude, his incompetence, or rather, I don't know if incompetence is the right word because they are very competent. I think liberal Democrats are very competent at gatekeeping and at shutting off the left position from gaining any sort of access. They're incredibly competent when it comes to that. Yeah. They behave like they're incompetent and feckless in their resistance to Trump, but I think that is by design.
Hasan, do you think their lives has been materially diminished by Trump? I don't think it has. I mean, aesthetically they don't like Trump.
If we're talking about
aesthetically, they don't like ICE, the side of the hooded men and all that. But in the end, if you look at their portfolio, if you look at their net worth, if you look at what they are doing every day, every night, where they go, to their office, to the various do's and gigs and whatever it is that they do at night. Their life has not been that severely affected. They may be interested in somebody like Mamdani because he's electable and so on, but the moment he's going to move from New York to the national scene, and he will not be able to have a 3-point plan. He will have to have a multi-point plan.
Yeah.
And the moment that his agenda starts undercutting their privileges, I very much fear that they will yet again succumb to the lure of fascism.
So how do we combat that?
Well, we don't count on them. We count on the right-wing Teamsters, on the right-wing, not the leaders of the Teamsters, but the rank and file. We have to speak to them. We have to address them with respect. Dismissing the Trump voters as fascists is a very big mistake. I call Trump a fascist, but we must never surrender masses of deprived and depraved people to the fascists. They are not fascists. They are people whose discontent has driven them to vote in that way. But
I do agree.
We have to pull them back.
I do agree with that. My way of communicating this is like, whether you think they're racist or fascist or not, doesn't matter. They still need healthcare, right? So this is one area that you can talk to them directly on. I've done this in the past as well. I mean, this is a more comical approach, but there's this podcast where these two kids have like ultra MAGA parents. It's called a Necessary Conversation podcast, and I actually talk to their parents with them. And when they have a conversation, they're very liberal. When they have a conversation with them, they have this dynamic where they're very angry at their parents, because the parents say like unhinged things, right? Justifying the assassination of Alex Peretti, things like that. And in that conversation, when I was talking to them, I was able to convince them of the need for socialized medicine, even though they are recipients of it. The parents are, because they're old. They're like 75 plus,
Sure.
so they're already receiving government funded healthcare. So they're like, I got mine, I'm good. But and even convince them on the necessity for public education as well, in order to remain competitive in the international market against other labor forces and in general. And I think that conversation can be had. It's just the major problem is that the Democrats don't want to have that conversation at all. Like,
That's
the
right.
political party does not want to have that conversation.
But remember, it was Obama that wrecked the public option.
Yeah,
And essentially, Obamacare was a great boon for the insurance companies. So, I lived in the United States at the time, and it was really very hard for me to barrack for Barack, to support Obamacare. I mean, I wanted to.
It's a right wing.
But
it was already a right wing.
But it was a right-wing thing. People were pointing out the fact that he was enriching the insurance companies.
Yeah.
It was,
Well, that's not what they were pointing out. The right wing was actually saying that they're going to do death panels, they're going to kill people. Like, the right wing was very indecent about their propaganda, which
that was the
still
propaganda
worked.
that was coming from the top of the Republican
Yeah.
Party. But some of the more thinking Republicans were not, they didn't defend it in the way they would defend Social Security.
Yeah.
If they're recipients of Social Security.
Yeah.
The cover that was offered was crap. And it was really terrible, the cover that Obamacare offered. You may say that's better than nothing, but in the end, the greatest beneficiaries were the insurance companies.
Of course. It was basically a subsidy for insurance companies, insurance providers, and that's
If you don't have the public option.
But it's so good for the GDP. Have you thought about that?
Yeah.
It's great. It's
Of course.
that's why United Healthcare is, I think, one of the top.
You need to follow this up. If you burn every house down, GDP goes up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
so
I know.
Bloody what?
I know. I understand. My point is, what do we do with all this discontent? How do we capture this energy and feed it into more productive organizing? I'm not going to tell Yanis the classic joke of the two economists walking in the forest and stepping on dog shit. I'm sure he's heard it many times.
No, actually, I haven't.
No, stop. I'm not doing it.
All right. Do you know the one about the economist, the physicist, and the chemist that are on a desert island?
No, I haven't.
And they have a can, and no can opener.
No.
And the physicist says, "I'm going to go and find some a piece of glass to concentrate the sun's rays in order to melt it down. The chemist goes out to try to find some kind of acid. And the economist says, why don't we just assume that it's open?
Yeah, I like that. I'm not going to do the joke, guys. Stop. Anyway, so new joke unlocked. Yeah, I'm going to tell your joke now going forward. I mean, you're an economist yourself as well, but
no one is perfect.
Yeah. So getting to the crisis in the region that we're in right now, you and I, you had a very interesting take on Trump's tariffs, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I think we have points of agreement as far as like whether or not Trump will be able to rebuild a robust industrial base here in this country, or but you were talking about potentially capital, like foreign capital coming back into the United States of America, and like the economic activity that's like coming back to the American heartland. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, let me say that if you read their texts, Stephen Mirans, Scott Besson's, and their speeches and so on, and the whole of the Council of Economic Advisors, there is a logic there, which one I reject. But the Democrats are pretending that these are buffoons who don't know what they're talking about. And it's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, the Trumpists have more of a logic, however malignant it may be, than the Democrats do, or the European centrists do.
Yeah.
And it's this. The Trump team acknowledges that American hegemony after 1971, after the end of Bretton Woods, has depended entirely on the hegemony of the dollar.
Yeah.
You know, because that was the whole point. The whole point was to blow up the Bretton Woods system that the United States had created in order to maintain and husband, this is a sexist word, I know, but maintain its surpluses. By the end of the Vietnam War, Great Society, LBJ's Great Society, and so on, those surpluses had become deficits. And around 1970-71, the administration, the Nixon administration as it turned out, had a simple choice. Be German, that is tighten the belt and introduce austerity, or do what they did, which is to say, okay, we have a deficit, we're going to make it bigger. And we're going to make the capitalists of the rest of the world pay for it. How? And the working class in the United States pay for it. How? Well, we are going to become the net importer of the universe.
Yeah.
So the German capitalists send their Mercedeses, the French send their champagnes, the Japanese send their Toyotas, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And we will simply print dollars and pay them with dollars. And what are they going to do? They're going to have to send their dollars back to New York because they can't spend their dollars in Germany or in Japan or in China. So they have to send it back to the United States, and that becomes three rivers. One goes to the federal government to buy treasuries. Effectively, the foreign capitalists will be funding the American army and the American social security system and the American tax cuts for the ruling class.
Yeah.
That's one stream, one river. The second one is going to be real estate, therefore Trump, and the Trump-like realtors. Yeah, that's how they became rich, with all this torrent of money coming from abroad, which is the result of the American trade deficit. And the third one, some money went into the stock exchange.
Yeah.
Limited amount because they didn't want them to buy a lot of important companies like big tech and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is the model. Now, the Trumpists love this model, but they're really worried, and they're right to be worried, because as one of them said to me when in a discussion I was having, I was quite impressed by this. She said, look, we overdid it. The dollar zone around the world is gigantic because we printed so much. And we keep printing. And the more deficits we have, the more we print. So the dollar zone, think of it as a balloon that keeps inflating, right?
Yeah.
At some point it can be pricked, and then we're going to be in trouble. Compared to the American manufacturing capacity, which is shrinking.
Yeah.
So we need to find some kind of balance again. And the way we're going to do it is by devaluing the dollar, right? And we are going to put tariffs up, not so much in order to keep them up, but in order to damage the Europeans, the Japanese, and the Chinese. Because if I have a trade deficit towards you, right, then there's no way you can win a tariff war against me.
Yeah.
There's no way. you will be damaging yourself more than you are damaging me.
Yeah.
So they put up these tariffs. The idea was to put up these tariffs to bring them to the negotiating table. To do what? One of the things that they did, for instance, immediately after the inauguration, was to bring the Japanese in and say, okay, you've got $1.2 trillion. I want you to sell this and buy stablecoins, US dollar denominated stable. Why would they want to do that? Because by selling the dollars, they help bring the value down of the dollar, the exchange rate. And you know what does Tether do with dollars that they take? They buy treasuries. So effectively, the Trump administration gets to sell more debt to finance itself and the tax cuts for the rich. So they have a plan. This plan has the capacity of stabilizing the hegemonic power of the Trumpists, of the MAGA movement, not the movement, but you know, the Scott Bessents, the new guy, you know, well, congratulations, you have another idiot who's going to lead the Federal Reserve, Mr. Walsh.
Yeah.
Right? The guy who was saying that in 2008, I remember him, he was advocating an increase in interest rates while Lehman Brothers was collapsing. I mean, a guy who is incompetent and corrupt.
Yeah.
He's going to be the new chairman of the Fed. So this is their plan. This is what they like to do. Now, my guess is it is already helping Trump bring into the United States, I mean, it's not my guess, I can observe that, I can see it's happening. A torrent of money is going to come in as investment. It's coming. German money is coming in. Japanese money is coming in. Chinese money would be coming in if Trump allowed it, but he's not allowing it. So from Europe and Japan, money is flooding in, but it won't create the number of jobs that will satisfy and satiate the MAGA movement's thirst for good quality jobs because of automation and because of AI. So in the end, I think it's going to blow up.
Howard Lutnick has openly stated that as well, where he's like, it's going to be great. We're building these factories, but they're all going to be automated. And it's like, okay, but then the people that voted for this to happen are not going to see any of the returns.
And that's why he sends the troops in to abduct Maduro. He sends the ships, you know, the 7th Fleet or 6th Fleet or whatever, in the neck of the woods where we happen to be.
But that kind of stuff is not popular with the base either, I don't think.
Yeah, but you know what? The moment the first few shots are fired, they all coalesce around the flag, don't they?
I mean, to a certain degree, yeah. We did see that. Oh, that's only if there is no resistance. Because that's the reality is that, like, I mean, Trump is...
But he's very careful. He's not doing wars.
Yeah, he's doing it as efficiently as possible.
He's operating like a hitman.
Yeah.
He goes in there, abducts Maduro, and then he says, okay, now I'm going to have a deal with his party.
Yeah. But what happens if there is resistance? And at which point, then there has to be additional response, and then further military incursion, and that's very costly. That's politically costly. I mean, I don't know if that'll happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens with Iran. Iran has been unimaginably restrained over and over again in this tit for tat, and I do see like a lot of countries that are in the periphery that are trying to play ball, because now the new game is basically you give Trump money directly and they won't. Hopefully, they won't hurt you.
Except it doesn't work. It's like giving a little bit of blood to the shark.
I mean, Qatar.
You know,
Qatar gave
if you give a little finger to the shark,
Yeah.
that's not going to pacify the shark.
Yeah, Qatar gave $500 million plane, right? They learned from their mistakes in 2016 when they refused to do so because they didn't understand it. When Jared Kushner was like, "Give me money," and they were like, "No," and then they almost got invaded. And now in the Epstein files, we found out that the UAE played a big role in that because at the time it seemed like it was Saudi Arabia that wanted to move in on Qatar, but it turns out that the UAE played a much larger role in that alongside Israel than to punish a country that is like somewhat more neutral than the rest of the Gulf states, especially with respect to Iran and also with the resistance.
Look, Hasan, there's no doubt that this strategy that I try to describe of the Trumpists is not going to stabilize the world. It's going to destabilize the world. But it's not that it is lacking logic. This is what I'm trying to do. Regarding this neck of the woods here, I'm a vociferous critic of the theocratic regime in Iran. But at the same time, I think we should do whatever we can to defend Iran from imperialism, from the attacks by the United States. Because it's for the people of Iran to decide how they will run their country. And, while I'm a critic of the Iranian regime, they have played a stabilizing role in the world.
100%.
They're the ones who defeated ISIS. they have never attacked anyone. You know, they were attacked by Iraq under Saddam Hussein. It was an American
intervention.
It was they used Saddam Hussein, their henchman, in order to attack the Iranian Revolution. Yeah. So people say, "Oh, you're trying to play both sides." No, I believe that sovereign people should be defended, including a regime that one doesn't like, from imperialist intervention.
Yeah.
So that the people in there can resolve the contradictions within, without being taken over and being colonized. Because this is what the Americans want to do. Not the Americans, the Trumpists want to do with Iran. They want to colonize Iran. And we saw, if you really dislike the Iranian theocratic regime, you've got to ask yourself the question, why did it occur? And it occurred because of 1953. The CIA, with British intelligence, overthrew Mossadegh. They overthrew a genuine, functioning democracy.
Yeah.
They imposed a fascist regime under the Shah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I was a student and when I first moved to England, in the first month I was there, an Iranian friend of mine who lived opposite me in the hall of residence was murdered by Savak agents. So I know exactly what Pahlavi wants to do and what the CIA wants to do. They want to bring back the horror story that they had imposed in 1953 about the Iranian people.
Well, I don't even know if Pahlavi wants to do that. I feel like he just wants
who
to.
Who gives a damn? He's an idiot.
Yeah. He's a puppet, but
he's following orders.
Yeah, but he's not.
He wants to go back. He wants to be king.
But he kind of gives me the vibes of a guy who's just like happy living in Maryland.
Yeah, well, maybe they made him ask for, but they actually tried to present him as the leader of the Iranian Revolution,
there's no
which he's not.
Yeah,
you know, the people who are demonstrating against Khamenei in Iran, they don't want Pahlavi back.
Yeah, but in Western media they cover it as though he's like the guy. But
yeah, all right.
We
saw this
agree.
back in Iraq. Remember?
Yeah, they'll welcome us as liberators, but. No, I completely agree. That is actually something I've talked about quite a bit as well. Like, one must understand why the Iranian Revolution took place in the first place, which means that the Islamic Republic is also I see it as like three different points of pressure. Obviously, the most significant one being the economic pressure from sanctions, with the express purpose of destroying the country's health and destroying the country's economy.
Killing people.
Is so unstable.
Killing people.
Yeah, it's so unstable that they rise up, right? Sanctions are basically to say you're going to starve until you kill your leaders. No other way about it. But then there's the domestic repression that the Ayatollah is engaging in, partially because of their own personal zealotry, but also partially because they want to satiate the base that they have, the 20 to 30% base of support that they have that justifies their existence and justifies their control over the country. And I think they have to scale that back, because this cycle of repression is only going to continue to grow, and that creates a perfect environment for Americans and the Israelis to take control over that.
Indeed.
And
the last thing we want to do, to see happen, is for Mossad, the CIA, to take over Iran.
Yeah.
That would be a catastrophe for the whole region, for maybe the whole world. Because look, even to begin with, let me be clear on something. The Iranian Revolution was a genuine revolution. It was genuine people's uprising. It was steered in a way. I mean, in the end, it ended up killing my comrades in Iran. You know, the Tudeh Communist Party. They were all murdered.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say that it was not a popular revolution. Yeah. It was a popular revolution. It didn't come from outside. It came from within. It was a result of all this story that begins in 1953. The message I get from Iranians who are opposing the regime is increasingly they're worried that Mossad and CIA will take over and effectively do what happened in Libya.
Or Syria.
Because Libya and Syria, but Libya is a great example because, you know, the standard of living in Libya under Gaddafi, whatever one may think about Gaddafi, he was a brute, there's no doubt, was very high. And, you know, security was pretty good. I mean, the people led good lives,
especially in comparison to now.
Okay,
it's not even
and now it's like a scene from a Hollywood movie. After Armageddon.
Yeah.
And you know, even so, what Trump is succeeding in doing is creating a coalescence, even of dissidents in Iran around the regime, to protect it from the Mossad and the CIA plan to wreck the country and to turn it into, you know, a godforsaken place.
I think that one of the
And I'm
major,
saying this as an atheist, by the way.
yeah, but one of the major issues I think with the Islamic Republic is that their number one enemy internally, in order to maintain stability, in order to continue controlling the country in its entirety, has always been the left. It's not. I don't think it's the. I don't think it's like the sectarian conflicts that brew in the country. It's a very diverse country, obviously. Some of it is propped up by the CIA. You know, like you have Kurdish militancy, the Balochistan independence movement, and things like that. But I don't. I think the major problem that they see that threatens their power and threatens their absolute control over the country is the historic socialist or communist position in the country. And they've been able to very successfully wipe that out through, you know, brutal repression, not dissimilar to what you were talking about with Savak.
But I have to say the CIA has been very successful and Mossad has been very successful.
Oh, for
I mean,
sure.
Look at what was happening during the 12-day war.
Oh, no,
I
of
mean,
course.
they clearly, the CIA and the Mossad have units.
Oh, yeah,
Iran.
yeah.
A lot of the people who died during the riots, during the rebellion, during the genuine uprising, a lot of them were killed by agents.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
By the way, for the record, because I see some chatters responding, I'm saying historically, the left was the primary threat to their power, which is why they, ruthlessly cracked down on the left.
In 1979.
Yeah. And
you know, they actually rose up together with the Communist Party.
Yeah.
The Tudeh party
Exactly.
participated in the Iranian Revolution. At some point, they were picked out and they were shoved into one building, and then they were all massacred.
Yeah. And now it's not. Now it's a nascent movement in comparison to what it was historically. That's what I was saying. So there is not really a. I don't know if there's like a really robust left movement left in Iran in general.
There probably isn't.
Yeah.
There is the tradition.
Yeah.
And look, Iran is a hugely sophisticated society.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We must remember that, right? I mean, their science prowess, their literature, their music, their theater. It's a magnificent society that could do really well without the sanctions. And in a sense, if something holds back this evolution and this development and the demise of theocracy is the sanctions.
Yeah.
The sanctions have been detrimental to
for
the
sure.
democratization of Iran. In the same way that the sanctions in Russia have been a godsend for Putin.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference there is that it was much more difficult to isolate Putin from the global markets as opposed to, especially with like its energy.
It's not just that, Hasan.
To Europe, whereas they have been able to effectively isolate
through
Iran.
Dubai, through China, through Pakistan, and so on. But the point I'm making about Putin being so much strengthened by the sanctions doesn't have anything to do with trade. It's got to do with the oligarchs.
Yeah.
Because one of the greatest problems that Putin had before the war, before he invaded Ukraine, was that he couldn't control the oligarchs. He tried. He imprisoned a few of them. He killed a couple of them, and so on. But still, they kept most of their money abroad.
Yeah.
And they used the openness, the membrane, which allowed them to communicate between East and West, in order to keep one foot in Moscow, one foot in Britain, or Spain or Portugal or wherever. With the sanctions, he had a deal to offer them. Say, listen, choose, get out, or come in here, and I'm going to give you IKEA, McDonald's, Deutsche Bank, because now these conglomerates are leaving. I'm inheriting them, and I'm giving them to you, but on condition that you keep your dough here, and you're under my direct control. And they said, okay. And they had a deal, and now he is far more in control of the oligarchy than he was before 2022.
Yeah. I don't even know where that ambition ends in Ukraine in general. It's entirely in his hands now. Like a lot of people in America think, oh, Donald Trump is so close to Putin, and that's the reason why he keeps getting dominated by Putin. And there is there's definitely a level of reverence that Trump has towards even people that you wouldn't expect, like Kim Jong Un.
Why wouldn't you?
And
He
Xi
likes
Jinping.
strongmen.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? He
But
drools over strongmen.
yeah, but outside of that, I would say that
He likes them misogynistic.
yeah,
He likes them hating trans people.
yeah.
He likes them being totally nationalistic, not tolerating dissent. So what is there
Yeah,
not to like?
he's almost jealous about the level of control and power that they have over their nation states. But outside of that, I do think that he recognizes the pressures that he's getting from the American side to like try to manage the Ukrainian ceasefire. But his attempts are all for naught because I feel like it's entirely in the hands of Putin at this point. Like he has dominated the battlefield, and that's it. That's
You're
where
quite right.
that reality is impossible to contend with if you're. I mean that is a major blow to American hegemony, perhaps more than even like almost to the same degree as like Chinese manufacturing, I would say.
Yeah. But you see, there is a whole school that you know this better than me. The realist school in the United States. Henry Kissinger, before he died, was saying that. My friend John Mearsheimer says similar things. It's not what I say, but it's what they say. They say, look, it took us decades to separate Russia from China, to divide them and conquer over them. And now what the Democrats did, along with the idiotic centrist Europeans, is they pushed Putin in the bosom, in the embrace of China. So he wants to end that because he thinks that he sees that China is the only game in town that he has to worry about, the only opposition to his aspirations and to his program. So that's not irrational. What I find distressing is the centrists' lack of a cogent answer to the question, what the hell do you want to do with Ukraine?
Yeah.
Do you have a plan for war? They don't. I get the answer, oh, but Yanis, he's the, meaning Putin, he's the new Hitler. I said, well, if he's the new Hitler, why aren't we sending troops to fight him? Because, last time we had a Hitler, we drove him into the bunker and forced him to commit suicide. Why aren't you doing that? No, you want the Ukrainians to do that with third-rate weapons that you send them, right? When there is no way they can do that. It's essentially, the worst service you can.
Unless they disband NATO and get the Turkish military to go and fight and defend Ukraine, because they don't even have the Europeans don't even have a competent enough standing military.
So they have no plan for war.
They don't have the numbers,
and they have no plan for peace.
Yeah.
This is what is so distressful. And in the end, you know what they have? They have a vested interest, and this is especially the Europeans, to prolong the carnage. Because in Europe, the only growth model that they have, and that is just a sign of the orchestrated idiocy which is running the European Union, the only growth plan they have is armaments, spending money on guns. But because they can't even borrow money, because we don't have the equivalent of your treasury, right? We have a central bank, but we don't have the equivalent of your treasury. The only way of doing that is by austerity. Shifting money from schools, from hospitals and so on, to Rheinmetall, to take over Volkswagen factories and build tanks where Volkswagen used to build cars.
I think that's going to be
But in order to convince the electorate to do that, you have to have a simmering war forever.
Yeah.
So my message to Ukrainians is, don't trust the Europeans. The Europeans want you to be killed slowly.
Yeah.
Slowly. So that they can maintain the facade of having a growth program.
Yeah, and that's why I think a lot of people said, "Oh, Trump wants to destroy NATO." I think that's a laughable concept that's a laughable argument that people engage in. I mean, maybe if he took over Greenland, but even then, it would not have disbanded NATO because NATO is a profoundly important part of the protection racket that we have. So that when we tell our European allies, you have to spend 5% of your GDP. You're spending that on American weapons that you're purchasing for your own defense. And like you said, the other side of that is the austerity that kicks in, where Europe is becoming more and more Americanized. Like Europe had at least a good run with attempts at social democracy, And I feel like what comes next
That
for
died
Europe,
in 1991.
yeah, and it's now it's in its death knells, like it's in its death throes. The European social democratic system.
Oh, that's finished.
Yeah, because now
they killed
you're
it off with the Euro crisis.
yeah. Now you guys in Europe will also say, oh, the Ansar Allah is gonna find out why we don't have healthcare. Have you ever heard that? Americans say that all the time. Whenever we're doing force projection, dumbass Americans will be like, oh, this militancy is gonna find out why we don't have healthcare. I'm like, why don't you find out why you don't have healthcare? Shouldn't you be mad that you don't have healthcare and instead you're doing this?
Yeah.
It's not improving your life in any meaningful capacity. And now, I wonder if that American, like the Western chauvinism, will also be a big enough motivator for the Europeans to continue on this dangerous path, because they're these past couple of months have been very interesting.
It's been very interesting, but we tend to exaggerate the extent to which this is a point of inflection or a major break from the past. I grew up in a country that was a member of NATO, and it was fascist. And you come from a country that managed to combine fascism and NATO. So when people say to me, oh, but a democracy has the right to be a member of NATO because NATO is the defender of democracy, I say, what? I grew up in a NATO dictatorship, fascist dictatorship, right?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is NATO is not about defending democracy. It's like the mafia.
Yeah.
It creates insecurity to sell you protection.
Yeah.
And if, at some point, Putin volunteered for Russia to join NATO. And they said, no.
Yeah.
And because then who are we organizing against?
That was really, did you listen to the Tucker Carlson conversation with Vladimir Putin?
No, I couldn't bear doing it.
I thought it was very interesting for one reason. And that is because the entire time, I mean, Vladimir Putin does the same thing where he like talks about, he's like a big fan of Dugin, and he talks about the historical reasons as to why Ukraine is Russia, all this stuff, and that's whatever, that's bullshit, right? But there was a point in that conversation where he turned around and was like, we want it to be America's Israel. and I think
that is correct.
And I think that's real.
He offered it.
Yeah,
the Americans freaked out.
Yeah, he wanted to be, another Israel, and maybe Trump wants that. I don't know how we could manage that, because that could be a bulwark against China.
Can I just throw?
What do you think?
On the table, my idea of what he wants. He wants to go into bed with Putin.
Yeah.
In order to replace the role that German capital played in selling Russian fossil fuels to Europe. So, up until the war in Ukraine, Germany and Russia had a very interesting pact. Essentially, Germany was getting natural gas for a pittance.
Yeah.
And this was one half of the German industrial model. The other half was selling to the United States.
Yeah.
Net exports to the United States. Cheap energy, low costs from the Russian gas to the United States. I think he wants a deal with Putin whereby Trump, that he's going to be selling, he is going to take over the gas and the nuclear power in Zaporizhia and so on and sell it to the Europeans.
Like Americans are.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, we've already made.
And that will be, and Putin will go along with that because it will be his way out of the, the Cold War, the isolation.
That's interesting. I could see that happening. I mean, we are already selling. We're making up for the LNG that they're not getting to begin with.
We're paying through the nose for your LNG. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Now in Greece, we have Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's used to be married to one of his sons.
Yeah.
She's the U.S. ambassador.
And was married before to Gavin Newsom.
There you are. There you have it. I mean, amazing.
She's bipartisan.
American politics, my goodness.
She's bipartisan.
It's even uglier than Greek politics. So, now they are building pipelines in the Aegean Sea, our sea, the sea between Greece and Turkey, right?
Yeah. When you say our sea, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, our sea. You're a Turk, aren't you?
Yeah.
We are reliving the Ottoman, the Byzantine Empire.
I'm joking. I said my sea.
Our sea. Anyway, so, they're building these pipelines that will go all the way to Moldova and to Ukraine. Now, imagine you're an extraterrestrial. You're coming down to Earth. You know there's a climate catastrophe breeding, right? And okay, they are not doing anything, unlike the Chinese, to decarbonize the economy.
Yeah.
And instead, they make it worse because you have cheap Russian gas that could be feeding the whole of Europe, but no, they're stopping this, and they are taking tankers that they are loading after spending a lot of energy to liquefy the natural gas that comes out of fracking in New Mexico and Texas and so on. They put it in the ships, all the way down the Atlantic. They go through the Gibraltar. They go all the way past, Malta and Italy and the Peloponnese, and they go all up, and then they unload that and they push this after they deliquified it, they gasified again. They push it all the way to Ukraine.
Right, but you need to
now,
make new
if you're an
refineries.
extraterrestrial, you think, what kind of idiot? This species
But that's
deserves to
economic
go
activity.
extinct.
But that's economic
Yeah,
activity.
of course. But breaking this window is economic.
Exactly. No, but it's the same. This is why capitalism is so suicidal.
Yeah.
Where it's pushing towards ecological disaster. It's suicidal in every aspect of our lives, and yet it just is mind-boggling. People
The
don't realize it.
capitalist will sell you the rope with which you're going to hang him.
Yes.
Remember?
I love saying that. But I think the other side of the story with America redoubling their efforts not into competing in R&D against China and trying to stake a claim over the renewable side in any meaningful capacity is to redouble on oil and gas.
Yeah.
And it almost, the way I describe it is almost like, you're playing a board game, right? You're playing Monopoly, and your competition is starting to buy everything, right? So you just flip the table, and you say, no, I'm not playing this anymore. And that's what I feel like is what the American move against China is, because China is dominating the future of energy. It's definitely, I don't know how well the Western world can recover from that. Like, I don't know how well the Western world could ever try and compete with that. And they're pretty honest about it. The Trump guys, I'll give them credit. They're very vulgar, but they're very honest in their vulgarity. Where I think it was Scott Bessent, who was at Davos, who just said, "What are you, stupid? You're buying all these, you're buying these solar panels, and you don't have a battery system. You don't have a battery factory. You're buying the batteries from China. They control the refinement and the procurement almost entirely, right, of these rare earth minerals that are necessary to build this new technology." So every time you're moving in the direction of, it was Lutnick again, it wasn't Scott Bessent, sorry. Every time you're moving in the direction of renewable energies, you're giving China more energy dominance over the world. And you're undermining the oil
Give
and
it to
gas.
us. Give it a buyer
No,
LNG.
that's what they're saying. They're very honest about it. And I think that's the major reason as to why they're trying to secure all of the oil producers to the
It's
best
so
of their ability.
short-sighted, isn't it, Hasan? Because, 2 points here. Firstly, the Europeans have been done, not for buying Chinese solar panels, but in 2000, 2001, the top-notch solar panels were German.
Yeah.
And then we stopped investing in Germany, in Europe. So we just dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And the Chinese picked it up.
I've been
and
talking about
run
this
with
for
it.
years.
Right? That's
it
number one.
It was the biggest growth sector even in America as well.
Yeah.
And yet at a time,
we dropped
75% of the subsidies were going to the oil and gas industry. And it was
Exactly.
instead
That's
of
political
building,
corruption.
Yeah.
It's not a plan. It's not, some kind of economic
Yeah.
blueprint. It's just corruption. It's like Epstein levels corruption.
Yeah.
Right? But the second point is that I don't think that their policy of essentially grabbing the fossil fuels of the world is logically coherent, because part of the MAGA movement, a substantial part of the MAGA movement, is grounded in the Permian Basin. It's grounded in fracking. Fracking is important to these people.
Yeah.
I mean, just watch Landman, which
Yeah.
actually I like very much.
Oh, well, my dad loves it too.
I love it. I love it. It's really very good.
Yeah.
But anyway, just forget it.
There's that rant I've seen in Landman where he talks about.
But the LNG that we are buying in Europe comes from that,
Yeah.
right? Now, if the price of oil falls below 62, 63, 60, they're gone. So, they are grabbing the Venezuelan oil. What happens if they grab the Iranian oil and they push all this oil into the market?
But they're not going to. There's no way, because then the price of the oil barrel goes down so much that then
Exactly.
these companies can't profit
So
anymore.
what is the point of grabbing the fossil fuels of the world unless you want to keep them from entering the market?
Yeah. No, that's
Okay?
what it is.
But
Yeah.
they won't be able to keep it because even if the American army goes in there and takes all the Venezuelan oil and the Iranian oil to hold on to it, Chevron and Exxon will want it, and they have enough clout if they can get it to get it within the administration. Even Trump cannot stop them from doing that. So he's going to be turning the MAGA base against him. So I don't think they've thought it through. I think it's just drill baby drill because it sounds good to the base. The base doesn't realize that.
You mean Chevron is going to stop them from releasing more barrels in the market?
No, the Chevron will want to release more barrels.
Oh, you think Chevron will? But wouldn't
because Chevron that doesn't have that much of a stake in fracking. It is the smaller independents that do. And when the big fish wants to get its teeth into the Iranian or Venezuelan oil. And they would play the game like Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia can sustain a lower price because they have volume. But the Permian base independents that are the fundamentally true believers in the Trumpist movement, they will be pissed off.
Yeah, he's gonna cook Texas, for sure. I mean, it's There's a lot of I guess from what I've seen though, they're offering contracts to some of the smaller independent companies as opposed to Chevron and stuff in Venezuela, because it's dirtier, it's harder to extract, it's
but
harder.
Chevron
to
are better at extracting the dirty stuff.
But
not the independents. The independents can do fracking.
Yeah,
they cannot do. There's no way they can harvest the oil from Venezuela from the tars and all that.
Yeah. And then it's also another lever against China as well, who's still obviously reliant on oil and gas. They're not, they're moving away from it, but they still need it in the process of development.
This year, for the first time, they reduced their consumption of oil and gas.
Yeah,
for the first time.
I mean, but that doesn't mean that there's still need for it, which is, I think, Trump's counter to the nuclear trade option that China has, which they pulled a little bit in the beginning of the tariff wars when they said, okay, we're doing export controls.
Yeah.
And that was that was something that was unheard of, I think, because that is the biggest weapon that they have at their disposal. If they could just stop, magnets and rare earth minerals from entering the American market.
They won that war.
Yeah, exactly. So all of a sudden, America can't make their weapons any longer. It just completely destroys American
drones.
dominance. Yeah,
they can't make drones.
Well, China's making the drones anyway.
Yeah.
But so I think this is a leverage point against that. If they ever tried that again, then America can be like, okay, no more oil for you. You will get no oil.
Well, we were having this chat, folks, yesterday, Hasan and I, when you were not watching, and I said that 2025 is going to go down in history for three monumental events. One, we already discussed. Putin won the war in Ukraine. Not against the Ukrainians, but against the Europeans and the Biden administration. Secondly, Trump won the commercial war, the trade war with Europe.
Yeah.
And thirdly, we have a new game in town, which is stablecoins, which is going to be the next source of financial instability in the world with the Genius Act.
I'm so oblivious to the cryptocurrency. I don't know anything about it, so I don't.
Well, don't think of it as cryptocurrency. Think of it as the privatization of the dollar.
Yeah, which is
we're not talking Bitcoin and Ethereum.
We're moving even further away from the gold standard.
Of course, forget the gold standard.
No, I know. I'm not saying that we need to go back to that. I'm not like a Ron Paul acolyte or something. I'm saying that what was that? That move away was initially to basically make it so that the confidence in the dollar was backed not by anything material, but instead by the confidence that people have in, I guess, the American military. And now we're even further eroding that confidence, and we're moving into something even more speculative, something that's even more unstable, ironically enough, even if it's called stable coin.
Well, we're saying this before. After 1971, American hegemony, including the American military, were based on the fact that the United States could make everybody else work very hard to produce real things that they would have to sell to Americans for dollars, so that they could get the dollars to buy stuff think not from America, but from copper or oil or whatever. So that's the exorbitant privilege of the dollar. But at least the dollar was controlled by the federal government, the Federal Reserve. But now with stablecoins, and by the way, if we have crypto enthusiasts and crypto libertarians and so on, don't start throwing things at me for saying this, because this is not about Bitcoin. It's not about Ethereum. I don't think these are macroeconomically significant. I'm quite happy for Bitcoin to do its thing. But Tether and Circle, you know, the US denominated cryptos, if you are, you know, a Bitcoiner, if you're a crypto head, you should be angry with Tether, angrier than I am with them, because what they're doing is they're usurping the idea of crypto and, you know, distributed ledgers and decentralization, and they are attaching it to fiat money, which you should be against if you are a Bitcoiner. So, and the reason why they're doing it is because they're privatizing the dollar, and they want to enhance the capacity of the federal government to increase its debt. You know, so if you're a libertarian, you know, you must think of the Genius Act that the Trump administration pushed through Congress as a major assault against your own ideology, not against my Marxism and so on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, what Tether does is you give them dollars, they buy treasuries, short-term treasuries, and they put them supposedly in some kind of safety box so that they can redeem your dollars, right? Now, when 6 trillion is going to go in within the next 18 months, according to the US Treasury, according to Scott Bessent, from plain vanilla bank accounts to Tether, that's 6 trillion new federal debt, which, of course, Trump is going to use in order to give more tax cuts to his mates, not to you folks. And okay, so there is the increased mind-numbing levels of inequality from that, but it's also the source of the next financial crisis. Because at some point, when there is a run on Tether, once, you know, these people will do something nasty with Tether, because, you know, if you give a private company in El Salvador the right to print US dollars, believe you me, they will do something similar to what Lehman Brothers would do. And then when there is even a small run on Tether, people will realize that Tether depends on treasuries. And they know that Tether will try to sell said treasuries. So people will start dumping treasuries. So the value of treasuries will go down. And so the collateral, which is upkeeping the value of the stablecoin, so a doom loop between Tether and treasuries. And who's going to save them from that? The Fed won't be able to, because the Fed has been kept out of this game. You know, Congress has banned the Fed from regulating this.
I think in the absence of alternatives, though, isn't that what will force everyone to play ball, no matter how much, no matter how collapse is imminent, because it's like the fear of devastating instability in the aftermath of that, which is kind of also part of the reason why a lot of people are forced to play ball with Donald Trump whenever he's doing these like tariff initiatives. Even if it's self-destructive, they have to play along with it, because there is no alternative currency.
They will play with ball with that, but when the whole thing, when the bottom falls out of all that, we're going to have a major catastrophic, you know, depression. And unfortunately, you know, I like Lenin saying that things have to get worse before they get better, but you know, the depression bred monsters.
Yeah.
And as Rosa Luxemburg said from her prison cell, there is a fork on the road. It could be barbarism or socialism.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily socialism.
No.
It can easily go to barbarism, and you know, this is what has happened in the past.
This is what has happened in the past, and also
if we're not organized.
And we don't. That's my biggest fear, is that we don't have the necessary infrastructure to organize in the direction of socialism, because of the war that liberals have waged against their left flank, against the socialists so successfully, especially in Western liberal democracies, has made it so that there is no political education, there is no interest in organizing. People are satiated by the treats that they can get, and they can't even imagine a world where they don't have that. I mean, we saw a snapshot of that with COVID, which was nothing in comparison to what we're talking about right now. Like, it was nowhere near the levels of the Great Depression. And even then, what did the government do? They had to come in and try to give the world's consumption engine some liquid, some cash, so they could continue purchasing things, so that the entire global economy doesn't collapse. But even then, the limited amount of restrictions that Americans experience as far as like, you know, having to show a vaccine card or something when they're going to get jalapeno poppers at Applebee's, that was so much. I mean, that was so devastating that they wanted to rise up in arms almost. So,
that's right.
I
So,
don't.
you know,
But they didn't. But they didn't organize
an
an
organization before the depression will breed monsters again.
Yeah.
That's why this is the time to organize.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to do my best, but I feel like it's quite difficult, especially in this age of disinformation as well.
We can only try, Hasan. And you know, trying is fun. Let's make it fun as well. I mean, you seem to be having a good relationship with all these tens of thousands of people, and get them to organize something in their own neighborhood.
Oh no, that's what I urge them to do all the time.
You know, with their neighbors and you know the local communities, and something that aims at ownership, at collective ownership. This is the only thing, you know. Even if you manage to tax the rich by another 1%, 2%, 3%, that's not going to change anything.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to change is to reconfigure property rights.
Yeah, I mean, it's ironic because like in order to save liberalism, they have to do social democracy, but they don't even want to do that. They consider that to be
they
so
can't
radical.
Do this anymore.
Yeah.
They can't even do this anymore. You see, once upon a time, under FDR in the United States, Willy Brandt in Germany in the 1960s and 70s, Harold Wilson in Britain and then again in the 60s and 70s, there was still a clear demarcation of power between industrial capital and organized labor. So, you know, if you were a politician, a social democrat, a New Dealer, you got elected, and you brought the captains of industry, capitalists, and the trade unions around the table, and you cut a deal. And you said to the capitalists, part of your surplus value will go to the workers, another part will fund social security, food stamps, whatever. Right? You could do that. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was doable. You could imagine.
But there was also a lot more pressure, external pressure from the labor side that allowed that to be justified to the captains, the titans of industry.
That's right. I mean, it's in your own interest. Otherwise, you will have to suffer long strikes and you will lose money.
Or they'll kill you.
Okay, loss of income worries them more than
That's true. These guys are more afraid of becoming workers, becoming laborers, than they are of dying.
That's right. But you know, after financialization, power shifted from the captains of industry to the bankers, and now it has shifted from the bankers to big tech. So, can you imagine putting Elon Musk and trade unionists around the same table? I mean, what are they going to discuss? There's nothing to discuss.
Yeah,
nothing to discuss. Okay, so this idea of social democracy being the social democratic or New Dealer leadership being the referee between capital and labor, that's gone. What is also gone is liberalism. The idea of the liberal individual. You know, when you have AI bots essentially hijacking your mind, infusing desires into you as a result of work that it makes you do for it when you're posting things and stuff on the internet. So liberalism is gone, social democracy is gone. The only thing that is left is the Marxist left. Yeah.
No, that's why I go back to the Epstein stuff, because it's like, this is one of the things that like should unite. I feel like it's the closest expression to like class solidarity that even the lumpen proles and the reactionaries have ever experienced, because they also all believe like, oh, the international pedophilic cabal is real, right? And then all of a sudden you have this revelation that like maybe the Alex Joneses of the world weren't so wrong about their initial analysis on this part, and yet all Elon Musk has to do is tweak the algorithm a little bit and just pump it full of AI. And now I'm seeing on my own timeline so many people get duped by fake posts. So many people.
You know what happened to me yesterday?
What happened to you yesterday?
I got from the BBC a very nice, polite email. I appear on the BBC quite often.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh, Yanis, we saw this talk you gave on Venezuela and Iran, and it was very interesting. Can you interview tomorrow live on BBC television?"
Mm-hmm.
And I clicked on the link. It wasn't me. It was a deep fake of mine.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I had to write back and say, "Look, I'm glad you enjoyed it, but that wasn't me. It was a deep fake of." And they said, "Oh, but it was so cogent and so well put."
You should have been like, "Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
I got it. I got you." No, but that's terrifying.
It is terrifying,
And
it's terrifying when it says things that I could have said.
yeah,
Because then it's so easy to slip into the narrative something that I would never have said, and that's defamation.
Yeah.
Right? They
And
can present me as anti-Semitic, they can
Yeah.
present me as anything,
Yeah.
because everything else is something I would have said.
yeah. But the reason why I'm also pointing to this is because like this should be a moment of radicalization for a lot of people, and yet they're so busy going back to old narratives. Like I see these guys were very openly talking about, trafficking minors. Like they were using the term like minors, young women, all this stuff very openly. And yet I see so many people go, "Oh, QAnon was real, Pizzagate was real." They're hyper focusing on like the 4 different emails where they bring up the term pizza. And I'm like it's insane. Like they're talking about torturing people and stuff like that. Like they don't need to hide and use code words to say pizza. It's very clear that they're openly speaking about their desires in general. And yet people find themselves in these different narratives rather than hyper focus on the actual evil acts that are taking place, because they're so malleable, they're so persuadable, especially with AI and especially with social media. And I think Elon knows that, and that's why even though he's been mentioned in the Epstein files quite a bit, I don't know if you saw, he was begging to go to the island. Insane. And yet they can get away with releasing this information because they know that the public is not going to respond in the way that they normally should.
It's another version of Steve Bannon's flood the zone. I mean, if you dump so much shit onto people, after a while they won't even smell it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that's what Trump has done as well. That's like Trump's success in many ways is he's such a domineering force, and it's like there's almost like outrage fatigue where you're like, what am I supposed to get mad at? Is it Cuba? Is it Venezuela?
Yeah,
is it Iran?
He moves very quickly.
Yeah, is it Greenland?
That's the geopolitical version of flood the zone.
Yeah.
He abducted Maduro. On the same day, he talks about Greenland. So before we even got a chance to discuss the abduction of a head of state, we are already worrying about Greenland.
Yeah, and the same goes for domestic affairs as well.
Sure.
It's like ICE is in Minneapolis, then they're going to move into another city, and the people are too divided to organize a significant response, except for the fact that these neighborhoods are actually getting together. There is like definitely a lot of decentralized movements in general that organize at the community level and do a pretty good job of like I saw it in Minneapolis. I saw it personally. These guys are super well organized.
I hope that they go beyond organizing defensively.
Yeah.
And they become a movement for progressive change.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what I'm thinking as well, which is that like
have you thought of running in elections?
No.
Well, why not?
Because
look, it's a horrible thing to do. I've done it. I can confirm that it sucks.
Yeah.
Big time. But there's a job. Someone's going to do it.
I know, but
these people have to vote for someone. What are you going to say to them when the midterms come?
Well,
don't vote.
No, of course not.
Well,
but I have.
Who are they going for the Democrat who wants to?
Well, I have my people. That's why I'm.
Okay, you have your people, but not everywhere.
That's true. But my goal is to try to, like my.
And why should these people have their lives destroyed by being elected and not yours?
Well, it's not even about like my life being destroyed necessarily, but because my life gets destroyed all the time doing what I'm doing anyway. I mean,
come on.
No, I'm able to.
You're having fun here.
No, I know, but I'm able to overcome it regardless because I have like built this resilient base of support, and I have ways of working around it. I get banned on Twitch, I go to YouTube, but my point is there's a finite amount of time and energy and effort that I can spend on this, and I feel like this is how I can maximize my output.
Sure.
Doing agitative propaganda, I think, and also creating a community that is then going out and participating in their own local elections, as many people in my community have already, to success.
At some point, you have to go to graduate to the level where you take their voice and you put it into some kind of assembly, some kind of Congress, maybe a state one, maybe a federal one.
I don't know. I know a guy.
Get ready.
I know a guy. His name is Cenk Uygur. He tried to do that and he failed spectacularly. So
Well, failure is okay.
yeah.
I mean, in 1905, the first Russian Revolution failed, and it gave us Sergei Eisenstein's magnificent movie, The Battleship Potemkin, which was an important, first step towards the real thing.
Well, since then his methods have changed. I feel like he's. I mean, you might like it actually. He's big into realignment with right wingers in general, like with Tucker and all those guys.
No.
I'm not.
That's
on board
not me,
with that.
mate.
Okay, well, I mean,
do not realign with Tucker.
You say
I want to speak
to the people.
honestly and respectfully to the victims of these people.
Yes. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I as Michael Brooks used to say, be ruthless to systems, be kind to individuals. I
suffer
try to
from the system.
Yeah.
So much so that they have actually become part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, that discontent and that anger that they feel, that resentment that they feel, that materializes in like, a fascist expression. That discontentment is coming from the material inefficiencies that they experience, and therefore, if you isolate that and if you talk to them directly about those problems, and explain to them the real pathway to solve it, they're not going to lean into the culture wars. You know what I mean? If you give people, it's not even a zero-sum game, but if you give people the two options where you're like, okay, you can keep dominating trans people or Guatemalan people that are like literally doing your landscaping and are the backbone of like the productive forces we have, or the agricultural output that we have that put food on your table, and you don't have healthcare, or you have healthcare but you don't get that. You don't get that moment of feeling satisfied because you've dominated someone lesser than you. That makes you feel more powerful. I think most people are going to go with material improvements.
Indeed. I was campaigning in some election in Britain some years ago, and I was in the north of England, which has shifted from being left-wing to being ultra-right fascistic.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like the labor enclaves in the north?
That's right, the so-called Red Wall.
Yeah.
And I gave a talk, and there was this elderly woman who came to talk to me afterwards. And she said, look, I like what you say, but I can't possibly agree with you because you keep believing that migration is not a problem. It is a problem. Next door to me, in my block of flats, my apartment block, I have it's a small flat, and it's inhabited by 4 Romanian boys. Now, each one of them has a job, so together they have an income that outbids any local renter, any family that wants to rent that apartment.
Yeah.
And this sounds reasonable. So I could have dismissed her as a bigoted woman, or I could ask her more questions. Like, for instance, can you tell me the history of the building? And she said, it used to be a council house.
Social housing, yeah.
Right? And what is it now? Well, Thatcher soldiers. And who does it belong to? She says, well, nobody knows, some kind of hedge fund. I said, okay, now, tell me. Let's say that I wave a magic wand. Those 4 Romanian boys go back to Romania. How is this going to help you? Yeah? Because, the fact is that it will still be owned by this. Maybe they will demolish it and create a shopping mall or something out of it. But the housing problem is not going to be solved. Maybe we should consider the fact that, weak people have been turned against one another. You against the Romanians and so on, by those who profit from both of you.
Yeah.
And, she listened. It wasn't that I was being smart. It's because I wouldn't have thought of that had I not asked her the question. So tell me the history of your building.
Yeah.
So ask people the history of their buildings, of their neighborhoods, of this, before you articulate an argument to try to convince them otherwise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I try to do, and I try to speak to people at their own level, like, or speak to their immediate desires.
I know you do, but this was my message to these folks.
But we've also briefly talked about entryism versus third party last night privately, not on camera. And this is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit as well. This is also often an issue. Hold on, what is this? No, I don't want to do this BIOS utility update. Jesus Christ. Okay. And the way I see it, Americans do not have any class consciousness whatsoever. They have problems. They experience those problems, but they have no productive output.
Mm-hmm.
They have no productive outlet to address those problems at all. So they focus on anyone that leans into their anger and resentment. And the right is very good at leaning into that anger and resentment and then redirecting it to other, marginalized populations or people that have the same class interests as they do, right? In the case of the Romanian versus the elderly woman, like you described. So the way I see it, there's only two major parties in the country right now, and my solution is not to like overtake the Democratic Party and like turn it into like a communist party or something. I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's a bourgeois capitalist liberal party, and it has played a very important role in identifying and neutralizing any sort of more radical left positions out there. Having said that, it does still have an election mechanism, and it still has a massive platform in general. It has a massive podium in general. And I do think that liberals, self-identifying liberals actually have more of a socialist tendency than they think they do. And the way to open that conversation up to them is by running socialist alternative candidates within the Democratic Party infrastructure.
What the DSA does.
Yes, exactly. So I do agree with that system. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't attempt to design a third party on the sidelines as well. Having said that, I don't know if the opportunity for a third party viability is there right now, considering how many people still self-ID as liberals.
We're on the same page. Starting a third party now would be suicide.
Yeah.
You can see it with the Greens, Stein and so on, that it really doesn't have the dynamic to change the scenery. But I think the answer lies in between. So, you and I were discussing yesterday the unique opportunity Bernie Sanders had in 2016 to start a party then, because he had run within the Democratic Party, because he had hundreds of thousands of volunteers, because he created the infrastructure, he created a political revolution, right? To use his terms. And at that point, he could have started a third party that would be viable. But that, by not doing it, that opportunity was killed. So you have to start again. As you say, like Mamdani, like AOC, like others, go through the party. If a figure like Mamdani
and then not allow them to be neutered either, because like the political machine does actually chop away their radical tendencies if they even existed to begin with, or if it was.
That's why you need the socialists within the Democratic Party to be better organized amongst themselves, to have more
party discipline,
factional, like the Trumpists did. The Trumpists did take over the Republican Party. Of course, they had huge capitalist help.
They're directionally aligned. It's just more capitalism.
That's right. But so your work is much. What you need to do is much harder. But you can do it. You can emulate what Bernie did, but with the intention of stepping out and taking the new structures that you have created within the Democratic Party with you if you hit a brick wall. And again, the National Committee chooses Trump over you.
Yeah, I mean,
or somebody like Trump. Or
I know, but at that point, there is a much more robust pressure mechanism that can engage in labor militancy.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that's a very different environment to be in.
A new kind of labor militancy.
Yeah. That's a very different environment than the one that we're in right now, where like all of these, from what I've seen, maybe I'm too optimistic, but from what I've seen, you got the Barbers and the Debras, white wine moms that are coming from the suburbs, accountants, lawyers, teachers, nurses that normally are just like straight blue, no matter who voters that are very frustrated with the way things are going. They're not experiencing like absolute economic death and destruction in the way that we've seen in the past that has led to more radical movements growing in the country, but they are frustrated by the instability. And I think like those people can also be convinced of the viability of this socialist alternative.
Yeah. No, utterly.
Yeah.
I agree entirely.
All right. Well, it's late.
Well,
I
Hasan,
don't want to. Yeah.
I am an
It's
old
12.
man. I will leave you with the youth,
Yeah.
the young with the youth. Thank you for having me.
This was incredible.
It was great fun.
Yeah.
It was a good way to end a very long day.
Oh, yeah. You gotta after talking to tech executives about the importance of AI and data collection, you gotta come back to earth a little
And
bit.
biting my tongue most of the day.
Yeah.
It's very badly injured from all this biting. But thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thank
keep
you for
going.
coming on. This was incredible.
Thank you, Hasan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. YANIS VAROUFAKIS, everybody. I'm gonna fix the audio now. I know everyone's been complaining the entire time.
So you will continue for many hours?
Oh yeah. I mean, not for many hours, but I'll definitely continue.
Very good.
All right. Here, I'll walk you out. All right.